AI isn't just for tech bros, it's for you too. Welcome to Yellow Now AI, the podcast that makes AI simple, practical, and useful for your everyday life. Whether you're juggling work, family, or just trying to get through your never-ending to-do list, AI can help, and we're here to show you how. I'm Melek, a tech executive and serial entrepreneur.
I'm Rima. I'm an author, entrepreneur, and an educator. On our show, we're going to bring you real talk, real solutions, and plenty of laughs to the AI conversation. What you're going to expect from us is unfiltered banter, personal stories, and hands-on advice that's going to help you work smarter, parent easier, and stress less. Because life is busy enough. Let's just make it easier.
Yalla.
Let's go.
Welcome back, everybody, to another awesome, jam-packed of information conversation about to take place with our special guest today. Rima and I are delighted to welcome Cheryl Kerr to have a conversation with us. Cheryl is somebody who spent decades of her career working in industry towards advancing women's health care and has now translated all of those experiences and insights from raising awareness and recognition into action. She is the founder of an advisory firm that is at the center force of raising awareness, increasing funding, and product development, all to address women's health and women's well-being. Cheryl, we're delighted to have you here today.
Thank you, ladies. Thrilled to be here.
Cheryl, I gave a very high level introduction about you. I know there's so much more. Would you give us a little bit more context, color into the origin story of where you were and how that helped inform to get you where you are today?
Yeah, I think starting with my own personal experience, right? Just like it is for many of us, whether it was the early days of being 12 and 13, struggling with what was called bad periods at the time, extremely heavy menstrual bleeding, cramping that was so painful it would cause me to vomit, not to get too graphic. And then fast forward, again, no real diagnosis, just, well, maybe try the pill, maybe it'll lighten your periods. That just persisted all the way through high school, college. Fast forward, I tried to get pregnant in my early 30s, went through the whole fertility process unsuccessfully. And now I'm like a lot of my friends in that sort of happy menopause phase. So it's really been this frustration with the lack of information and the lack of urgency on the side of healthcare providers to intervene. And I think that's what's so important as women. We often advocate for those around us, but not always for ourselves. And I want to change that, right? I can encourage my friends and family, no, don't get a hysterectomy. There's always another solution. But I think when it comes to women in general, without information, there is no advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I get the opportunity to speak with some of my amazing colleagues in this space, it's really about addressing this long history of gaps of women represented in research, funding for clinical trials, and diagnostic tools, as well as really good treatments.
Yeah, I think I've heard a couple of things that tie into what you've said, which one is like women were always kind of viewed as smaller versions of men in terms of, research studies, and that there in medical school, traditionally, the amount of times dedicated to women's health outside, before they get to a specialty of gynecology, but in the actual medical school is something like 20 hours.
Yeah, it's sad, it's frustrating, it's infuriating. And when you think about it, though, it makes sense. Without data, what are they going to talk about in medical school? Without treatments for the providers to use, what are they going to say? In other words, what's the point of diagnosing somebody with a disease, for example, fibroids, endometriosis, if there's nothing you're going to do about it outside of surgery? Nobody's in a hurry to make a diagnosis like that, especially if you're in your childbearing years.
You said something in your introduction that I want to just dial in on for a minute. You said that you're in your happy menopause state. And that's so interesting to me because, menopause is one of those topics. Growing up, I didn't know anything about it other than it was this thing that happened later on in life, and it was probably a sad thing and a kind of thing that makes you less of a woman. And so and obviously that narrative has really changed,
Yeah.
particularly in the recent couple of years with people like what's her name, Stacey Sims and Mary Claire talking about
Yeah.
menopause.
Maria Shriver,
Maria
Oprah, right? It's
Shriver,
a hot
yeah.
topic right now.
And you said happy place. So can you just talk about that a little bit and how you came to be happy about this? It's inevitable, but still.
No, it's fascinating that you called that out. In hindsight, I'm one of those people who've always looked forward to menopause. My
Oh,
periods were so painful and
okay.
so disruptive to my life. I finally figured out that if I got an IUD, a hormonal IUD that would stop my period, that would help. And it absolutely did, which was interesting because I had to convince my healthcare provider because I didn't need the IUD for contraception, given that I couldn't get pregnant.
Mhm.
But thankfully, it stopped my periods and it was truly life changing. But I have, since a very young age, looked forward to menopause for the simple fact that I wouldn't have to suffer through my periods anymore.
Mm, mm,
That's so
And
interesting.
now, and it's actually, I kind of feel like we're coming into menopause at, I shouldn't say we, because you two are younger than me, but we're coming into it at a time where we can talk about it. We can
Mhm.
speak about it openly. Have you seen that woman on social media, the I Don't Care Club, the founder of the We Do Not Care Club? She is completely hilarious. I love everything about her. If you haven't seen her, you have to check her out. Um, but it's kind of freeing. And I also think a lot has changed, even just in this last year.
mm,
So there was a panel held by the FDA with a group of experts who I'm blessed to know many of, who came through with a really loud and clear voice that we are doing a disservice to women by not prescribing hormone therapy. And they particularly focused on vaginal hormone therapy because we know there's not that systemic transfer of hormone for some women who can't or are contraindicated for that. But that's really been a beautiful thing. That's opened the door.
mm.
I myself have started on transdermal estrogen, which always needs to be accompanied with progesterone, especially if you have a uterus intact. And I don't know, as long as you're able to manage the symptoms, right? And it does help with sleep, it helps with bone loss, thought that it decreases the risk of dementia, heart disease. So there's all these, luckily, positives coming out about hormone therapy now, as opposed to what the world looked like just a few years ago.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, and I'm thinking back. I always thought that was a very harmful, risky thing. I think there was
Yeah.
a study or something that said
Hmm.
HRT had higher incidence of cancer or
Yeah,
something, and this is appending that under information.
it absolutely is. There's things we need to factor in that weren't factored in at the time. One, they were starting these women on estrogen in their 60s instead of when they were going through perimenopause and menopause. So the
Hmm.
sooner you start it, the better the positive outcomes. Secondarily, they weren't using estradiol, which is the form of estrogen that we use now. And we also have both vaginal forms of estrogen for those who need it for the local area, whether that's vaginal atrophy, whether
Right.
that's frequent UTIs, and
Hmm.
now transdermal. And I want the systemic benefit. So I'm on transdermal.
There's been a shift in the way
Yes.
that we talk about women's health since you began, right, your career.
Yeah.
So, what role has technology played in this evolution?
Well, it absolutely has. Technology is huge across healthcare in general. And some of the medical devices, for example,
Hmm.
play a huge role. If I think specifically about the disease areas that I've been primarily focused on recently,
Hmm.
it's infertility, It's fibroids and endometriosis. And we've made a lot of advancements in the lab for infertility, right? So, genetic testing, picking just the right embryo. We still have a lot to do when it comes to the patient care and making sure we're able to transfer that embryo into the uterus and have a viable pregnancy. There's
Mhm.
still work to be done there. And then if I think of the disease states of fibroids and endometriosis, that's where we need more technology. Yes, we utilize ultrasound for diagnosing fibroids, but unfortunately, the standard of care for diagnosing endometriosis is still laparoscopic surgery. But there's a lot of talk about AI in healthcare right now. In fact, there was an article that I just saw today from Forbes talking about how AI, just like most conversations about AI, right? We talk about it with kids in school. Should they use it? Shouldn't they use it? Do we have to worry about sort of, people relying on it too much? I had heard about a lawyer using it, and AI was actually making up false case data, which I thought was mind blowing. So we have to use it with caution, but my gosh, it can make us so much more effective and efficient in our daily lives. And I'm really impressed by what this group Emma is doing in AI, specifically for women's healthcare. Because if you think about how we treat women, and it goes back to your comment earlier about women as small men, that's ridiculous.
Mhm.
One, we're not always smaller, and two, we're completely different,
Mhm.
especially when you factor in hormones and other body composition, et cetera. But I think what Emma's doing that's different is they're accounting for the fact that we've lost a lot of time. We are
Right.
generations, we are decades behind men's health, between general health, because of the lack of research, because of the lack of awareness around how women are different. So if we just keep feeding AI, it's going to be a garbage in, garbage out type of scenario. There's too many gaps. But if we take a woman's lens to it, and this is a women-founded company, and we think about how women communicate with their providers, we can make a real difference with technology.
I think, like you said, there is kind of a shift in awareness. There is a shift in conversation about this topic.
Yeah, that's huge.
And there is the availability of AI, which hopefully could be used to accelerate that timeline. Like you mentioned, we're decades behind the research and understanding in terms of general health and men's health. But what's the potential of AI to kind of catch us up in that regard? And one of the things I'm really excited about, cautiously excited about,
Sure.
is seeing the investment that's happening in women's health, women's wellness. A lot of conversations I've been seeing around period wellness, about endometriosis wellness, menopause, perimenopause. I think Rima
Yes.
and I talked with somebody, we had a guest on one of our earlier shows. I didn't know perimenopause was a category of a thing until probably a year ago because a friend of mine was discussing it, going through it, and I thought, what is that? Like I'm not familiar with that
Yeah.
category whatsoever. And, broadly speaking, I'm somebody who is generally well informed about their health. And so it made me think, like, how many other people don't know about this? And like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic about the attention that is now placed on women's health, solutions for women's health, particularly using AI as the engine to drive innovation.
Yeah. And I think we've seen a lot of advancements in menopause, especially recently. And that's because these conversations are happening and investment is happening. We've got a lot of telemedicine options for women to get their hormone therapy or other menopause support solutions. A lot of women don't realize when they hit perimenopause, they feel extra stressed, extra moody. They end up going on SSRIs for their mood, which is fine, but there's a lot that can be done with cognitive behavioral therapy. Again, HRT can be beneficial in that space. So I think the more data we sort of feed the AI engine with these conversations that we're having now, the better. And of course, I know from my community of women, we all use AI in our day-to-day lives. Some of my friends I would put on the early adopter side of it, and they were the ones that actually encouraged me to use AI more. My
Mhm.
friend Catherine's a huge advocate. And now I find myself, because I'm having such a positive experience with it, using it more and more, especially in my women's healthcare business.
Tell us about that a little bit, Cheryl. What does that look
Yeah.
like in your business?
Yeah, so a lot of what I do around awareness and education is through social media.
Hmm.
For example, I'm participating in a conference, a women's healthcare conference next week in Boston, and I want to make sure people are aware about it, of it, because that's where we're really going to be having some of these conversations about filling in the gaps and making sure we get investment, especially in some of the most foundational areas that often get overlooked, like fibroids, endometriosis. So I'll use LinkedIn a lot. And I have to be honest, some mornings I'm sitting there with my coffee. I know I need to post. Um, and I need the words. The words are not coming to me yet. I'm having writer's block. And I'll talk to my chat GPT and I'll say, this is the sentiment of what I want to communicate. This is the general content. Can you draft just a quick LinkedIn post for me?
Hmm.
And it's rare that I'll take the exact post as it is and sort of copy paste it. I usually tweak it a little bit, but it's a starting point. And I would say not only is it amazing as a starting point, but it also helps you take your thinking a step further. So I've used it before. I even recently updated my resume with it. So it's not the same as going to a professional resume person, which I still plan to do. But when you're in a pinch and you need to get somebody a resume quickly, and keep in mind, I was with the same Fortune 500 company for almost 30 years. So my resume updates have been very few and far between. But because I've been using ChatGPT so much, it knows me. It knows the experience. It knows what I'm working on. And I just said, hey, can you update this resume? I pasted it in with my most recent work history. And it was a great starting point. Again, I had to tweak it, but then it'll even ask me if I want to take it a step further. You know, do I want to add other areas that I've been working in that I hadn't even necessarily thought about? So I love the prompts. And I'm very, it's funny, I sometimes laugh at myself. I do a lot of please and thank you with my ChatGPT. I'll be like, oh, thank you. I hadn't thought of it. I always give it the like button, right? Because you want to give it feedback. You're essentially training it to sort of know you and be able to represent you in some way. Um, but yeah, and sometimes it just, even for recipes, it gives me some amazing ideas based on what I have in the fridge at the time.
I think these are like really great, tangible, practical use cases. The thing I think about with the resume is how difficult it is to start
Yeah.
that process.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, you might go and see a professional, but I think about all of the people who can't see a professional for whatever reason, whether it's accessibility, they don't know somebody, they have limited time, they're up against, a short window for an opportunity and they need to submit
Yeah.
something quickly, or the cost factor, right? Like it's
Absolutely.
usually several hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands of dollars, depending on the role and the
A
level.
level, yeah.
So I think that's also something to keep in mind with the promise and the hope that the technology, the AI can deliver to us.
So Cheryl, just to piggyback off of Milek,
Yeah.
how can companies ensure that, such as Emma, for example,
Yeah.
ensure that innovation doesn't just serve those already empowered, those already who have access?
Yeah, I actually think it helps with accessibility, just like a lot of these technological solutions, right? Like telehealth. I
Hmm.
think one, it helps healthcare providers be more efficient and productive so that when you do get that precious time with them, which we all know is minimal, you're maximizing it. I think as long as we're using it in a responsible fashion, just like anything else, and we recognize where there's lack of data in women's health because we just haven't invested there. But I think over time, especially take menopause as an example. Menopause is getting a lot of play right now, and that's fabulous. I do think and there's a number of telehealth groups, whether it's MIDI Health, whether it's My Alloy, there's several of them. And the beauty is you don't have to wait 6 months to get in front of your OBGYN if you decide you want to start hormone therapy or contraception, whatever that may be. But I think these groups all generate data, right? They're all capturing electronic health records. And this can be the fuel that feeds the AI engine in the future. And to your point, I think it can shorten that time period and take these huge gaps we've had for generations and now take this influx of data and actually have something positive at the other end.
Yeah, I think about, telemedicine is an area that I work and have worked quite deeply in. I remember having conversations with people in 2018,
Yeah.
2017, about why telemedicine and how, that would be a way to serve a population that is unable to get into the office. And the thing that we often talk about in these conversations is people who are in rural areas, which obviously that's an obvious use case. But I would always say, because many of our clients are urban, in the cities in Brooklyn and in the Bronx and Staten Island, New York, places like that with high density. And I would say, think about what it takes to show up to an office appointment. If you're a person with limited ability, I'm not saying you have you have to take a train, you have to go up and down steps, you have to think about the time. Maybe somebody has to take an appointment or off of work to be there with you in that appointment. So when we think about accessibility, it's not just, like these rural areas. Like accessibility is also an issue in urban areas for different reasons. And then the compression on the physician's time, the schedule of being able to get an appointment. And so I think about that whole group of people, also not being met with their needs and how the technology came into place to serve that. And I think that's a great example of the benefit, the real tangible day-to-day benefit of technology. And, I don't see any limitation of telemedicine other than, it's in an acute setting, it might necessitate somebody actually getting to an ER or an urgent care.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when we think, so I got really into telemedicine during COVID, like a lot of us did, but not just for personal reasons, because of my job. Women weren't going to the doctor. And it's not like a pill that you can get through the mail or at your pharmacy. You have to go to the doctor to have an IUD insertion. So what we started looking at is, well, what if women can at least get a telemedicine appointment and start to have the conversation? What is an IUD? How does it work? When can I come in? So that when they can go into the office, they're better prepared for those conversations. And that was great. And I think at the time there was a little bit of hesitation from the physician community because with things like OBGYN, a lot of the appointments are very hands-on, for lack of a better term. And I think where telemedicine has gotten to now is it's supplemental. So you still need to go to your OBGYN for your annual exam. That's 100% necessary. But if you decide, kind of like I did about 6 months ago, hey, I'm ready for hormone replacement. I'm not going to wait for my annual exam, which is 3 to 6 months out. I'm going to start now. And that's where telehealth can really benefit you.
I see. So Cheryl, so what have you learned about how digital and AI tools can help connect with women in different communities and life stages, like as you went through that experience?
Yeah, so I think one of the cool things is that as women, we tend to be more connected through community, right? Whether it's conversations like this, there's a ton of social media groups. And let's take infertility as an example. It's such a personal experience. It can be very isolating. It can wreak havoc on mental health, relationships, all the things. And it's not always comfortable for women to talk about, especially when they go to, Christmas dinner, right? Everybody wants to know why she's not drinking wine that night. And suddenly it starts to get personal and very uncomfortable. Everybody's got their own anecdotal advice. Oh, you just need to relax. You just need to take a
Right.
vacation. Women don't necessarily want to talk about the most personal stuff in that environment.
Mhm.
But there are these wonderful communities in social media of women who are supporting each other and championing each other to go through this process together. And I think that's a really beautiful thing that's resulted not just from COVID, but I think it's exacerbated as a result because we couldn't be with our people in person and we were all going through our own challenges.
This is actually really interesting because I think about, the number of conversations where social media is bad, right?
Yeah,
Social media is wreaking havoc. It's destroying our ability to hold concentration for more than 15 seconds. It's breaking our real life relationships. It's eliminating friction in many ways because it caters to what it knows you are interested in or what you like. And
true.
my kind of flip side of that has been, but it's also created a community for you outside of your geographic boundary for subjects and topics that you may not readily have people to talk with in your immediate circle or in your geography. And I think about, like you said, that Christmas party with family and friends, you might want to talk about your issues with whatever, fill in the blank, right? Infertility, birth control, miscarriage, perimenopause,
Yeah,
menopause, but maybe not with this group of people in this moment. But then you found this amazing supportive network of others who are going through that thing, and their geography is all over the place. So I think about, that's one of the ways I think technology has enabled these menopause, perimenopause conversations to take place. I don't think we would have gotten to this place without that,
yes.
and I think the idea of, women kind of, like you said, being more connected generally, we're now seeing women taking the lead in these initiatives, right? I think, about the founders of these companies, and I think about the funders of these companies. You now have women who are making those decisions to write the checks, to
Yeah.
fund the research, to fund the startup that is aiming to serve, women's health by looking at period blood, right?
Yeah. Which is
And these are,
amazing that we've
it's
gotten here.
amazing. It's
We
amazing.
used to throw it away. Who knew?
Right. Who knew how much value and insight is in that to inform other health decisions and other healthcare information, which, again, I go back and say, like, I don't think these conversations and this ability would have existed were it not, that we had been building these groups on social media, having these conversations, and it reaching a kind of critical, like, mass of a huge void,
Absolutely. And it takes geography out of the equation,
Yeah.
right? Remember when you used to have to travel to have some of these conversations, and now, you get voices from all over the world, which is great. And I love it when I hear some of these advocates within women's health. Soteria Venable, who is the head of the Fibroids Foundation, is a great example. She's in Washington, D.C. all the time trying to help with fibroids and advocate for fibroids legislation. But the last session was supposed to be yesterday. And of course, here we are in a government shutdown. So she's not sitting on her laurels. She's partnering with folks in the UK and they're addressing Parliament for these types of changes, right? It doesn't matter what your geography is. You can always have an impact by getting together with folks that share the same mission.
So that being said, are there, from your view, your vantage of, with your consultancy and your decades of experience and kind of seeing the development of different solutions come into play, would you say, again, specifically in the areas of women's health, women's AI powered new solutions that might come to market, or like, what are the things to be cautious of? Like, what are the things that we want to be aware of before maybe dive in. Well, let me take a step back. Are you using any AI powered women's health tech solution right now?
I am not. I'm strictly focused on ChatGPT because that's what I'm used to, and that's been sort of my guide from the start.
Yeah,
But I'm
it's interesting.
very open to it, and I'm going to continue to track Emma.
Yeah, that's something I'm going to watch too. It's interesting because, we're in this space and, not using the solutions. So that kind of raises a little bit of a question for me. Just, what are the things that we should be looking for when we make those decisions and considerations about which solutions to introduce into our lives?
And
Yeah.
I'm not sure, to be honest, and I focus on women's healthcare all day, every day. I'm not aware of any,
Okay.
right? I'm aware of using AI as we do, again, for our day-to-day lives, for our day-to-day work, for organization and efficiency. Um, and obviously, there have been period trackers and menopause apps and all these other technological solutions. But outside of Emma, I'm not aware of an AI-powered tool that's specific to
Mm,
women's healthcare. Otherwise, I would happily give it a try. When
Mhm.
I think of the flip side, which is what could the harm be, I look at it twofold. One is just like anything else. It's just like the double-edged sword that is social media, right?
Mhm.
You have to balance that, the good with the bad. You don't want to overuse it, but you want to leverage it where it makes sense. You don't want to count on the information you're getting as fact without doing your homework. But I'm also a little bit concerned when it comes to investment.
Mhm.
AI is such a hot topic right now, that I think investors that are now just starting to get into women's health, which thankfully they're coming around, they're looking for the next AI tool. They're looking for the digital apps. They're looking for menopause supplements, and that's great. But these are areas where often we've already made some advancement. And I go back to some of the foundational areas in women's health that are lacking investment
mm, mm,
and that are super destructive to women's lives.
mm. This segues really nicely into what I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
Cheryl. So imagine the world in 2035. What does a truly equitable AI-enabled women's healthcare system look like to you?
So if I think about health equity, which is huge to me personally, very passionate about, I do think AI in general is more accessible than often a physician appointment. So that's one thing. I think AI can help you find the right physician for your condition, even if it does mean traveling to that person or leveraging a telehealth experience. I think the key to it that has been missing in women's healthcare for far too long is a holistic approach. We have to look at the whole woman. So, not just the fibroid,
Mhm.
not just the endometriosis. Is she trying to get pregnant? Is she done with her family? What other symptoms is she experiencing? Is she depressed? Is she able to go to work, or are her periods so heavy that she has to stay home? And I think if we can leverage AI to fill in some of those gaps,
Mhm.
it'll be amazing. I'm also aware of this really cool company that's focused on a diagnostic for endometriosis, and they're planning to use AI for the ultrasound, right? So if you think about you go to get an ultrasound, it's very dependent on who the tech is that you're seeing. And their results may or may not fit the needs of the physician that ordered that ultrasound. Well, if you can incorporate AI and essentially standardize it, one,
Mhm.
maybe your ultrasound's faster, maybe it's more effective, maybe you're able to identify more endometriosis lesions, but you're taking sort of the subjectability out of the equation. So, whenever we can standardize medicine with the understanding that we have to be empathetic to whoever is sitting in front of us, the better. The more standard approaches we're going to take to diagnosis, to treatment, and again, back to that critical data generation piece.
That's really insightful, Cheryl. And actually, while you were talking, it made me think of, using AI in a way to be more equitable with healthcare. And
Yes.
it relates to the availability of physicians and their access, and knowing that, that time is already constrained, the availability and schedule. And then when you're in the office, the constraint that's there because
Yeah.
of just the realities of what that looks like. And so what if, one of the things that starts to happen more is using AI as a prep for the appointments, right? What if, the AI is almost a tutor, a guide to prep for the in-person appointments? And how does that show up for women's health and women being able to ask the better questions, get closer to the information that they need to give to their physician so that they can get an informed suggestion, treatment plan? Because I think in one of our previous conversations, you had also mentioned that sometimes women leave things out, you know,
Yeah.
in that moment for again, a multitude of reasons. There's pressure of time, there's maybe something they didn't consider as a real symptom, but it would be important to know. So these are
I
just some
think
of.
that would be a fantastic application.
Mhm,
I think the more prepared you can be for a doctor's appointment, the better.
mhm,
Um, the more you're going to get out of it, just like anything else. And I think AI can not only help you prep for that appointment by making sure you're thinking of everything, right? It always gives you those little extra prompts, even when you don't think you need it.
mhm.
I also think it's going to be great for healthcare providers, right? As you think about the way they interact with their electronic medical records right now. I don't know about you, but it's very much like they're talking to you and they're typing over here, and it's so focused on
Yeah.
the data capture that my hope would be in the future we would have a better personal connection with the provider because they too would be able to leverage AI before, after, and during the appointment so
Mhm.
that maybe all that data capture is either preloaded or they're not so distracted with their typing and they're more focused on the personal care.
We're already seeing that in instances of like the AI scribe that's in the appointment,
Mhm.
listening to the conversation. And what it's done, just to your point, it's allowed the physician, the clinician to have that eye contact and be more present in that experience in that moment
Yeah,
with the patient. And I think that's one of the ways that I see the AI tool being really beneficial to the relationship with the physician and helping increase trust and
yes,
um, comfort of disclosure in those sessions. But also the summary notes, think about when you finish that appointment and you have your
sure.
clinical notes in your patient portal. um, that's also another way that we're seeing that appointment live on in a way that is better serving the patient and the physician, clinician afterwards. But I hope we'll continue to see more improvement and innovation in that regard.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Cheryl, this has been such a informative conversation. I love the way you shared, both your industry views on technology and AI and how it's helping form and advance women's health, and also some of the practical, tangible ways that you're using it, like your resume and your recipes.
I even had it do a logo for a friend of mine, and I was super impressed. Put
Nice.
in a few prompts, and yeah, it was like professional.
And I appreciate your candor about not being an early adopter, so
Yeah,
that's a message to the audience, you you're not behind, you're not too far gone, you can still
yeah,
be
it's never
part,
too late.
never too late.
Yeah.
I
Just
agree.
start.
And your lived experiences, Cheryl, thank you for sharing those. I think a lot of our listeners will be able to relate to personally to some of those, trials, tribulations, and um, journeys that you've personally had as a woman.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think the more we talk about it, the more we can normalize it, and help encourage each other to do something about it.
Well, exactly. You said, the talking and the raising awareness phase. Now we've got to move into action.
Now let's do it.
Right?
Let's get some investment. Let's get some better diagnostics, and let's get some treatments. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. There you go.
All right, Cheryl, we have a couple of standard questions now that we do every episode and every one of our guests. So let's kick it off with what's in your bag.
Ooh, interesting timing for you to ask me that, because I just made the switch this morning from the summer bag to the fall bag.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah. So let's see. So see the nice fall color? Right? Gone is the baby blue. So because I did the switch, I'm actually leveraging the pouch solution. I don't know if you ladies have tried this, but in addition to my wallet, I try to keep everything in a little pouch.
Okay.
I happened to find this alloy pouch, which is the group that I order my hormone therapy from.
Okay.
And
I like that you're on brand.
Thank you. Well, it's helpful.
From the hormone group, it's great.
I mean, again, I just moved, so I have fancier pouches, but I haven't unpacked them yet. So let's see what I have. I have, my favorite new bars, Stars and Honey. Have you tried these?
I have not.
They're good. Yep, you ladies will discover when you get to the perimenopause, menopause phase, you need more protein. It's hard to get. And these just have really good flavors. This one's raspberry donut. I don't know what the other one is, but they're really tasty. Let's see. Oh, Rima will appreciate this. I have my mosquito repellent wipes.
Nice.
Because as Rima witnessed at one point, I tend to get mosquito bites.
Is an attraction. Yes, I saw them in action. I'm like, there's a mosquito sucking on your ankle, girl. Like,
I looked down. I was like, oh my God. You can barely feel it. Oh, this is my little spray that I use for my yoga mat. It's got 5 guards essential oils, and I just dilute it with a little water. It's better than using Clorox or something like that.
Right.
Creatine, mind and body. This is supposed
to be a hot topic.
Wait, is that a powder? Is that a powder, Cheryl?
Yep, and it's flavorless, and I can put in my coffee or my water.
Okay.
And you'll discover as you get older that it's really, you lose muscle every year.
Yeah.
It's really hard to build muscle and maintain it. So again, I follow Dr. Marie Claire Haver.
Yeah.
She's awesome, and she's a big fan of this. So
she's the person who I've gotten a lot of this kind of education from, and I really like her. And
I do too.
Talks about creatine, but I haven't yet made
the jump. I figure as long as it's flavorless and it's easy, I can do it. Also I have my Groons.
What is that?
Sue.
Yeah, Chelsea Handler's huge on promoting these on social. That just pops up in my feed all the time. It says Superfood Greens Gummies.
So Cheryl, I gave them to my mom. She thought it was candy. She ate 5 packs at once. She got a huge, she was just, it was rough. It was just candy. I'm like, no, Mom, it's a vitamin. It's you treat it like a vitamin. It's a medicine. You don't eat the whole 5 packs of these. She's like, but they tasted so yummy. I'm like,
They are good. They're
good.
Sweet, but they're not too sweet. I don't know that I notice a difference, but I figure it can't hurt. It says supports gut health, energy, immunity, recovery, beauty, and cognition. Who doesn't need all that?
Who doesn't need that? Sign me up for 5. I'm like your mom, Rima. I would take 5.
I'll hook you up. I have a whole thing going on here. I'll get you some.
This is a good one. This is my new fall color.
Ooh.
So I always like to carry the polish around because you never know. It's not as dark. What's it called?
Okay.
Oh. And I usually just get a pedicure every now and then, and I do my own touch-ups. But this is in case I end up at a nail salon and I might want to have something done. Then I can take it off.
I love that you carry a nail polish just in case.
Yeah.
Well, and remember, I'm going to Boston for these conferences next week, and maybe I'll even get my fingers done. That's a rarity, but it could happen.
That's nice to know. I use a particular brand of nail polish, and I always keep that and like the top coat and the
Yeah,
base coat in my car
Nice.
because it's too much to try to remember to time it with the appointment. So I just put
exactly.
that in the pouch in my
You know,
car, but you're
Yeah.
even more committed with it in your bag.
and then this, as Rima well knows, I have a gluten allergy, which can be a
Yes.
pain, especially when you're traveling.
I know.
So I have gluten-free soy sauce just in case I end
Okay.
up
Just in case.
someplace and there's sushi there, but I can't use that
Right.
sauce. I have my own.
Oh, I should start carrying those actually. Okay.
Learn
Yeah.
so much just from the contents of your
So
bag. I
yeah,
feel like
gluten
I'm
free
missing
soy
out
sauce.
on
Soy
on
sauce
things.
packets. I'm
Yeah.
writing these down.
And then this is, God forbid, I do actually get a bug bite. This
It's
is the device
adapter.
that I use to treat it. It's called Bite Away, and you hold the button. It's heat delivered technology, and the heat sort of brings I call it venom, the venom from the
The venom
mosquito
out.
to
Venom.
the surface, and it stops the itching.
Ooh.
That's neat. I
Yes.
feel like I missed out on
I feel wait, this bag is so cool. What yeah. Okay.
And
you. There's so many things to look into.
yeah, and I
But now
always
this might
carry. I'm very spiritual, so I always carry my Archangel Michael with me.
Oh,
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
okay.
But now the question is, Rima, your question.
Yes. So
How do
Cheryl, what is your
how do we
absolute most favorite snack ever?
Oh gosh, this is a real challenge. Um, I'm gonna have to pick a category, so I'm gonna go with salty.
Okay.
I am fascinated by some of the interesting potato chip flavors.
Hmm.
So, like pickle.
Okay.
Um, when I was in Portugal the summer before last, they had prosciutto flavored potato
Hmm.
chips. They had ketchup flavored potato chips. But if
Yeah.
I think of a staple, like if I was alone on a desert island
Yeah.
and I could only have one type of chip,
Yeah.
it would be your very basic Lay's wavy reduced sodium.
Okay.
They're
Oh,
just, I don't like too much salt.
Yeah.
And they're standard. You can do them with dip, without dip.
Yeah. They go with
Very,
everything.
very
Yeah.
versatile.
you
Yeah.
really have consider. I mean, you have like a point of view with these snacks. I love
Oh
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm big on
right?
snacks. And I think I've even become more of a snack person since I discovered my gluten allergy.
Right.
So
Right.
never know when you're going to have a snack attack. And if you're somewhere at someone's house, they only have gluten snacks.
Right.
They're eating them and you can't partake,
Yes.
you feel a little left out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's always good to have a few with you.
that's great. All right, final question.
Sure.
Something that's making your life better.
Ooh, something that's making my life better. I mean, the obvious answer is AI, but I'm going to have to go with yoga.
Okay.
I just started yoga early September and
Okay.
I'm obsessed. I think
What
I
are you finding about it, particularly, Cheryl?
It is a huge way to ground yourself,
Mhm.
especially if you do it in the morning for the rest of the day. It brings me a tremendous amount of peace, and
Okay.
it's truly integrative. So it's the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical. My flexibility, my balance
Mm,
have improved
Mm.
dramatically in
Mm.
just what, a month and a half? It's
hmm
amazing.
Got you. Is it making your joints juicy? This is a conversation I've been having. What's making you juicy and not what's juicing those bones? Like, so-
Well, juicy hormone replacement, but joint juicy would be, um, I think it helps. It helps with the knees.
Mhm.
There are some things I avoid just because I do have uh, arthritis, particularly in my one knee. And so I'm cautious. I don't want to overdo it. I'm kind of noticing, I mean, you still get the creaks and the cracks, but everything feels better.
That's great.
Yeah.
And again, this is something you just started in September, right?
Yeah,
For
Early
for
September.
everybody that's listening or
yeah,
watching and who thinks it's too late,
yeah,
Cheryl is a living testament that it's never too late. You don't have to be the first one. You just have to decide that today is the day that you're trying
right,
something new.
right.
Absolutely.
Cheryl, thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself with us and our audience. If people want to find out more about you and the work that you're doing, how can they get to you?
Absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn. I think I even have my email posted there. So
Okay.
I would love to hear from folks, especially those of you interested in women's healthcare, which is near and dear to my heart.
And we'll link all of that contact info in the show notes. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, ladies. Thoroughly
Here's to
enjoyed it.
staying juicy.
Yes, I love it.